Good afternoon, and thank you for agreeing to have a conversation with us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Um, how has it been? It's been 10 years
Hot.
since you've been in Botswana.
Hot.
How does it feel
hot,
to be back?
Hot. It's hotter than the last time. I mean, the last time I was here,
Yeah.
just probably 11 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Solidarity.
yeah. Yeah, this interview has started.
Yes.
So I've been doing comedy for 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was 20 years. Last year, October to be specific.
Yes.
So for the first 10 years, I came here every year for like 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got married one December, so I didn't come one year. Then I had a firstborn the following December. I
Yeah.
didn't come that year. And then I MC'd Miss Botswana for like 3 years in a row. And then I haven't been for 10 years. So literally the first 10 years of my career, you know, I think Maitisong was the first venue actually where I performed.
Yes.
And then here I am 20 years later.
And you're going back to
Going back to the
Maitisong
same
again.
venue, yeah.
How does it feel?
So we used to perform with Dick Nash, and my first time here was with Chris Forrest,
Mm-hmm.
South African comedian.
Yeah.
And Fish is the organizer, used to own like the keg and something type. What was McGinty's? And every night after the show,
Yeah.
and then there was a year McGinty's bent down, and then we couldn't go back
Yeah.
that year. I think we ended up at the fashion place. There was a club that was like some lounge.
Fashion lounge, now cigar lounge.
Yeah. So nice memories, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But because my career at the time, it got so. As every time I was traveling or I was working, would be the time I'm traveling to a place. So I've never like come to Botswana, hang out, go check out the Kavango and go to Kalanga and, you know.
Yeah.
It's always come, check in, rehearsals that night, maybe party, wake up, show that day, party, wake up, drive back to Joburg.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, even though I came for like 10 years, I've actually drive in, circle, Pagalani, circle, venue, circle, border, go home.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll come back again. I want to come back for the festival in September.
Which one? The GIMC?
The GIMC, yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So maybe then we'll spend a few days, you know, be a tourist in Africa. It's always a good idea to travel in Africa.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So it's 10 years not being here. You know, like I said, I was single. I got married, had a baby. Now I've got three kids.
babies now.
Yeah. So this is now the 10 years that I'm back for since I've been gone. I've had 3 kids.
Yeah.
I started making films for Mnet, Mzansi Magic. I've made maybe almost 20 now. Wrote, produced, directed. Sungezile produced a bunch of them.
Yeah. I think maybe let's take it back to
Yeah.
tonight's show.
Yeah.
Let's hone in on tonight's
Okay.
show,
So-
and then we'll diverse to other
Yeah.
aspects of your career.
Yeah.
What should we expect? Should we expect in South Africa? We've got this thing of fill up the dome. Should we expect fill up Maitisong?
We can fill up Maitisong, I think, between myself and Fish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a short notice.
Yeah.
You know, I gave him a call. Maybe 10 days into January, and I was like, "Hey, man." So Songezile, who runs my production company, has worked for me for 10 years. We get some requests from Botswana artists that ask us to help them out.
Yes.
So obviously throughout my career, I've taken a lot of comedians, found them, developed them. Some I managed, Tapelo Tipses and then Combas, and kind of take them through the industry, and some of them make them famous, if you want to call it that. So it's like a formula that we kind of know. You know, we've got properties that can take someone from being an unknown comedian to being a well-known comic. You know, like some comedy show in South Africa. So You Think You're Funny TV show that
Yes.
I did. Also, it's been 10 years since I did it. So it happened, I think, with Impossibina as well. And she met Sondezile, who works for me. And then we started kind of helping her navigate South Africa or South African music scene.
Yeah.
Right. So Tato Jessica
Yes.
pretty much kind of sent a shout out to Sondezile online, and she loved her music. And then I got to meet her, and then I was a guest on a radio show, Kai FM, and I wanted guests. I had her on the show, played a song. So kind of also now saying, you know, her saying, I want to break into South Africa. I'm kind of trying to move here, you know. Can you guys help me wherever you can, introduce me to people? So then she mentioned the music awards, which may or may not happen. I don't know what's the status at the moment.
Yes.
And so because they were on a Saturday, and so they likes traveling in Africa. And but our whole thing has been talking about me going to Africa. You know, I feel guilty that I've been to so many European countries and Canada,
Very few of
US,
Africa now.
and I haven't really traveled Africa.
Yes.
Right. So I gave Fish a call, and I was like, hey man, this weekend, this date, a Thursday or a Friday, can we do something? You know? And he was like, sharp. And I was like, sharp, check a venue, get back to me. And just like that, it's kind of how we decided, okay, let me come back. But then I wasn't aware at the time that it's been exactly 10 years since the last time I've been there.
Yeah.
You know?
And
So
you're
it
going
kinda
back to
completes-
Maitisong where it all started.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it kind of completes a circle, I guess, of some sort. Because for the past year, I've been celebrating 20 years of doing stand-up comedy. 1040 last year. That's why my show is called Half Man, Half Comic. So I've been a comedian half my life.
Actually, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Why half man, half
Yeah,
comic?
that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So remember when I started, I was 20 years old. You know, so-called the first black stand-up comedian
Yes.
in South Africa. So by default, if I'm turning 40, I've been doing comedy for 20 years. Right? And 40 is like that age.
Yeah.
Whatever people want to call it, a milestone of sorts. And then I was like, wow, like literally half my life I've been a stand-up comedian. So there'll be a time when I've been a comedian almost all my life type thing. When I'm 50, I would have been doing comedy for 30 years.
For 30 years, yeah.
You know? So I thought it's a nice number, and we actually did the first show in New York in August 2016, right? And then we did a couple of shows in South Africa. So I decided this year has to be the year where I kind of do Africa. Zambia, Namibia, Botswana, been to Lesotho and Swaziland, we'll go back again. And then definitely East Africa. So you go to
It's
Kenya.
called half man, half comic.
Half Man, Half Comic will be
Yeah.
the tour, the name of the tour.
Yes.
Half Man, Half Comic Africa tour. So, and then because I was the first black comedian here, I started meeting or knowing like Basket Mouth, who was kind of like me in Nigeria, Salvador, Patrick Salvador, who's, if you go to Uganda and you say comedy,
Yes.
you know, they're gonna say Salvador. And then Nkaisi Mekana obviously started coming up as well. Kenya, Churchill. So I had known Churchill for like maybe 10 years. But we were just speaking on the phone, we had never met, I'd never been to Kenya, he had never been to South Africa. And then he came to South Africa one year for a Comedy Central Festival. So I think for me, just my chapter and my history and my story,
Yeah.
I can't tell my story without having been to as many African countries as I can. And hopefully keep coming back, you know, the same way we do in other countries, you know.
I think, how do you craft your messaging, your jokes, just to ensure that you don't upset someone or you are insensitive and so on?
So it comes with age, right? Obviously when I was 20 or starting out or 10 years ago, I wasn't as mature. And when I started out, South Africa was changing, political change, 1998. Mandela was the president. So doing a lot of impersonations of Mandela, black and white this. I come from there. So I almost skipped my life, right? And I started talking about the politics in the country. The elections are coming up. ANC, Nelson Mandela, there's Bishop Tutu impersonations.
Yes.
So that's where I kind of started, or where I was. So a lot of social current affairs, a lot of politics when I started out. And then I guess in the past 10 years or so, I started literally watching myself have a wife, get married. My wife is mixed, half Greek, half Zulu. The father wouldn't let me pay lobola. So my life kind of became another sort of chapter, if you want to call it that, where I was focusing less on politics in my stand-up. And I was, I guess, living my life and discovering myself and traveling a lot, which went on maybe for 6-7 years or so, right? And then I started touring and doing another show, and then I realized I've never spoken about growing up and where I come from and the schools that I went to and the schools my kids now go to. Because now I'm sitting there, I'm like, my school fees was 40 Rand a year at some stage when I was growing up. And I'd still get kicked out for not paying school fees or not affording, right? And a few years later, my kids' school fees are like 6 figures for like a 4 or 5 year old, And I'm sitting there and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
I don't get it. So you see the subtle differences, that's what started now taking over if I get up and go to a stand-up comedy, I was stuck in traffic that morning, I try and take my kids to school every single day or pick them up if I can't. If my wife takes them to school, I try and pick them up.
Yeah.
Then you kind of have this, I'm in a car, I'm stuck, I have to pick my daughter up, pick my son up, drop that one, pick that one up. And now you are listening to music that I wouldn't normally listen to, but it has to be clean, there can't be swearing. So now I'm changing the music I'm listening to, driving them to school, or they're watching DVDs, I know the lines in a lot of animated films, but I've never seen the movies because they're playing at the back where they're sitting and I'm driving, And that's kind of like another chapter that my life started taking and my shows started writing, which I guess is the 10 years that Botswana people didn't see, Obviously there's been TV shows, there's been a lot of travel, doing shows in Canada, touring with Russell Peters in the US and Canada, and going to Just for Laughs, where I went for the first time like 19 years ago, and then I was back there like 16 years later, in Canada, at Montreal Just for Laughs. So it's been an interesting journey, mostly wonderful.
Regrets,
discovered a lot of
excitements,
comedians.
Yeah.
Look, I've met a lot of comedians. I've met a lot of international comics, because a lot of them, I brought them to South Africa, kind of thing. I was the person who brought them to South Africa.
Yeah.
My manager, partner for Blackstone, also brought a lot of comedians. So I met a lot of from Jimmy Carr, Russell Peters, Ray Barnes, Dwayne Perkins, Ruben Paul. And a lot of them at the time were not as famous as they are now. So I've kind of known them and seen their journey as well. So for me, meeting these people, I have a thing about relationships and how I work. So that's why 10 years after I've been coming to Botswana, I call the same person that brought me to Botswana
The first time.
20 years ago, or the first time when we were studying, 10 years, So the relationships for me, I guess, have been the best thing that I've kind of had.
What's been the highlight of your career?
I guess for me now, first of all, with comedy or performance, your last show is always
you're only as good as your last act.
You are only as good as your last act. So I'm always trying to compete with myself and my last show, right? But last year, Black Somali Comedy Show turned 15 years old in South Africa. So we did the Dome, which is like a 12,000 seated comedy. We had like maybe 10,000 people. That was last year, August 11th. So definitely, if I have to look at the last thing I did, or like, I guess the last 20 years, besides a Black Song show that 3-4 shows a year sell out in Johannesburg, and then 15 years later, we're selling almost 10,000 tickets with the same brand, you know, discovering more new comedians, up and coming comics. And you look at some of the people on the lineup who are celebrating 10 years in their careers. I found them 10 years ago when I was doing So You Think You're Funny and going around South Africa looking for comedians or for black comedians. So last year, I guess, Black Song at the Dome was a big deal. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Your lowest points?
It's not such a low point as such, but obviously, I guess the industry was small, so anyone can message me or say to me they want to be a comedian. From literally putting them up in a place or a house, getting them a car if they needed a car to get to a gig, I'd pay for all those things. Get them gigs, you know, put them in the movies that I was making. So I did all these things which became unsustainable because doing all of them with my own money, and I wasn't making money from it. So I guess the low point is even today there's still no program or a South African government sponsored thing where you can say I want to be a comedian and go there and they kind of take care of you or help you out that way. So it comes back to me 20 years later, but now I have to be like, I can't help, you know, or I can only help one person at a time. When there is actually potential to kind of be developing 10 times the amount of comedians or South African language speaking comics, 10 times at the rate that we are seeing them now. So it's a bit of a concern. It's like a sore point more than a low point. So it's something that can still be fixed or changed or get better. But 20 years is a long time. You know? One show, you can have a terrible show today at 2 p.m. at a corporate gig and have an awesome show at 7 o'clock at night. Or have an awesome show at 7 o'clock at night tonight and have a dodgy corporate gig 8 a.m. the following day. You know? It's just how the business is.
You talked about mentorship and about advising upcoming comedians. How do you advise aspiring comedians who really want to make it, but they can't get people laughing? How do you deal with that? How would you advise?
So making people laugh and being a comedian, two different things, right? Anybody can make people laugh. Your phones, WhatsApp, social media, memes. So someone can send you something now and you laugh without even me saying anything, right? But once you say you're a comedian or you want to become a comedian, for me, the easiest thing I say now is take your phone and record yourself, right? Put it on social media. Like, give it to someone else. Don't forget about me, because people think I can make them funny and I can make them a comedian, right? So I say sharp. Whether it's a wedding or a school hall or a township hall, go and perform there, because the best thing about stand-up comedy is between you and an audience. Even if Fish didn't like you or I didn't like you, if the people watching you think you're funny, you're probably funny, right? I might put you in a big show. Fish might book you for a big, his weekend GMC music festival, but that doesn't mean you are funny, or when he books you or doesn't book you doesn't mean you are not funny, right? So I always say the best thing about this business is the audience will always decide or always tell you if you're funny or not, right? Then you get to a point where we know you're funny. That's not the case. Then it's either you're funny on this show tonight, or you were funnier on an interview on television. Whoever saw you at either of the shows is going to get that impression. So if I saw you at the big show where you were killing and you're funny, I'll think you're funny. If some mother or teacher or child saw you on a morning show and didn't think you're funny, they'll think you're not funny, right? So it's always about, I always say I perform for the people that I'm working for at that time. Especially because I didn't do a lot of stand-up comedy on TV. Because television, you perform for people that are watching, right? If you watch a lot of events or awards shows, etc. So with stand-up comedy, if I thought I'm doing a show, blacks only, 3,000, 4,000 people, 98% of them are black. If I walked into the blacks only comedy show and on that day there's 4,000 white people, I'm not gonna do the same show that I was gonna do for 3,600 black people. So I might not be funny that day to them, come back the following day and be funnier to the other group. So if someone thinks they're funny and they're a comedian, there's a feeling that you have that you know you're funny and an audience or someone knows you're funny. It's not a debate. I can tell a joke tonight about your, is it DCIS or DIS?
DIS.
DIS director, and he gets up and walks out if he's at the show, or his family, someone gets up, walks out, doesn't find it funny, right? It doesn't mean I'm not funny, but that person did not like the joke that I told, because they came to the show because they probably thought I was funny. So the timing is important. So if you say advice I would give someone who maybe wasn't funny at a show, that all those things matter. Where was it? Who was there? What did you say? Right? So for instance, in South Africa, or at least in my whole career, I've never joked about rape. So I don't think there's anything, that's me.
Yeah.
You know, there are other comedians that joke about it. So for other people it might be disabled people, that other comedians will never joke about it, or an audience member will just think there's nothing funny about you telling a joke about disabled people. So how I deal with it, I say to myself, I have a hit rate. So if there's 500 people in a room, I've never thought I can make every single person laugh. That's unrealistic. So I made peace with that. So if I come to a show and there's 490 people laughing, and there's 10 people that are just like, this is some nonsense, you're not funny, it's okay. I'm fine with it. I'll continue with the 490, and I'll focus on those 490 people. So that's what then up and coming comedians need to realize. Not everyone is going to find you funny. You know, scientifically impossible, physically, emotionally impossible. So that's the one thing they kind of have to accept. And then you take what works and you work on it and you make it better.
You're not only a comedian, you're also a filmmaker. You talked about, is it between 15 and 20? You'll correct me, of movies that you've done. So how did you bridge into that space?
So the strange thing is, myself and Kagiso Lidikga wanted to be filmmakers or make movies, because we didn't even know the term filmmaker, right? We always wanted to make movies before we even knew we'd become stand-up comedians, because I never wanted to plan to be a comedian. So it's always been there, but because of the filmmaking industry and how difficult it is to make a movie or a TV show, when we were at university, we went to drama school together. And when we were there, again, without being a comedian or anything, one of the societies that people join at the beginning of the year at the university, one of those people thought me and Gagiso are funny and asked us to come and perform at one of their society gatherings. So we were not comedians. They thought we were funny, and they asked us to be funny or to perform. It was in a lecture hall. We were on top of desks in a lecture room in UCT. So you could say we started stand-up comedy literally at the same time, same place, together. And by then we had known each other maybe for like 4 years, 5 years, when we started stand-up comedy. Then we came up with the Pure Monate show at that time. It's like 1996. But then it only got on TV like 6-7 years later, because again, that concept, that idea, for like someone in South African broadcasting to be like, let's do this thing. You know, even 7 years later when it went on air, it was still like 10 years ahead of its time. You know, so the filmmaking has always been there, but resource-wise, we had to take the money we made from stand-up comedy to do what we wanted to do in films. So that's how it kind of came through. So, you know, started buying our own cameras, equipment, sound, this, that. Then it also becomes easy to like book a date, find actors, get up tomorrow, go somewhere and shoot something. Not perfected, not try to be perfect, just make something. Because the difference with filmmakers or people that want to be filmmakers, there's people that have made films on their phones, and they can call themselves a filmmaker more than someone who went to school, studied, has a degree, has never made a movie. So that's kind of how it came about. You know, we then started having the ability to go to an Mnet, and they were studying this Lokshin Bioscope movies at Mzansi Magic. The first one I made was Taxi Ride, which then is how I took Skomba, Swison, and Chris Mapan and Tapelo Tips, put them in this movie, and then, you know, even today, people call Tips Shampoonizer or Shampoo, you know, and that's like 7 years ago that movie was made. Then the next year there was a 5-part TV series, then there were 3 movies the other year, then the past 3 years I think we made 12. And I would write, produce, direct all of them. You know, started teaching Songezile how to produce. Then I would come up with a story, get another comedian or another writer to write the actual script. I worked a lot with Rorisang, Mutuba, Muzi Tamini. So again, you know, going back to how I work and the relationships that I keep. And so from like the first Taxi Ride, you'll find Rorisang maybe wrote 5-6 of the films that I made. Muzi maybe wrote 3 or 4. You know, Bramuntu was AD for 3 or 4 of those. When I wasn't available and I was traveling overseas, then Bramuntu directed that one when I wasn't there. So that's how we kind of got into filmmaking. But it just kind of weaves in, because most of them were comedy, and I just basically continue taking the comedians that I found and cast them in the movies that I was making. You know, it's kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Nice. Tonight's show, what should we expect?
I'm gonna be the funniest I can ever be. Eh? That's the thing with comedy. So whatever happens, the aim is I have to be funny, and I have to be the funniest people in Botswana I've ever seen.
Thank you. Any last words?
Where is Bakang? I'm selling my Range Rover.
Bakang is in court.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe you can pass by the Court of Appeal later today.
I read the other day there were gunshots at someone's house.
Yeah.
If he wants to buy my car,
how much are you selling it for?
We can negotiate, maybe 100,000 pula.
All right.
We can negotiate. Not a bad car.
Thank you so much, James.